Welcome to Mobile Armor Radio, the podcast for all things Mecha.
All right, guys, it's Chopper and Rob here with a special edition of Mobile Armor Radio. Today we have John Walker. John, you are the current creator of CAV, I guess. Creator, is that the right kind of word?
Well, kind of a continuing. I actually helped work on the original CAV when I worked for Reaper Miniatures.
Oh, great. So, John, then, so why don't you give us a quick rundown about your history in gaming? How did you get started in the gaming? And then we'll move into the beginning of CAV.
Well, of all things, back in the day, I actually found the basic Dungeons & Dragons box set in a Walmart, of all places, back in the day. And this kind of dates me, I'm afraid. But me and my brother dived into that, and that was pretty much our bread and butter game for a long time until I discovered Battletech when it very first came out. Of course, it was originally Battle Droids. And we had been watching, we lived out in the country, so we had satellite at the time, the big 8-foot dishes in the backyard. Nice. And we started watching Robotech. We got it from some feed out of, I don't know what country it came out of, but we had to get up at 4:00 in the morning to watch it. So me and my brother would get up and watch Robotech at 4:00 in the morning and do our chores and then go to school. And so when we first saw Battle Droids, of course it had the mechs from the Robotech series, so that's what drew us into that. So I played Battletech for a long time. I did some work running tournaments for FASA. I did some work with one version of Mech Force when it was available. And somewhere in the time, I went to work for a company that one of the original owners of Reaper Miniatures worked at. And he introduced me to his partners, and we became good friends. And this was Reaper just starting out in the garage of a house. And later on, I started working for him and did that all through the 90s.
Well, what did you do for Reaper?
Well, originally, when everybody starts out there, or when in our early days, you did everything. It was casting, polishing. We did a lot of contract work for other industries as far as casting and things like that. So they originally started out with a line of figures that was produced by Heritage Miniatures. I don't know if you're familiar with the original Dungeon Dweller figures that came out. They're pretty much one of the first things that ever came out.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
Right, yeah, the funny shaped elves and dwarves and everything. So they had picked up the license and was casting those at the time. And then they ran into the young lady that owned a magazine called Scry Magazine. This came out right as Magic the Gathering hit its heyday. And in cooperation with her, they put out the original Scry Count, which is Reaper put that out as a tracking device. It had a wizard's hand in the middle of it with a crystal ball. And they sold those things as fast as they could make it. And that led to giving them the opportunity to start working with some more known sculptors. And we put out the Dark Heaven line of figures. Originally, I think there was 8 or 10 figures. Julie Guthrie sculpted a bunch of them, and we just went from there and never looked back.
That's good. And then, so you do not work for Reaper, correct?
I do not as an employee. Like I said, I left there in the late 90s. But I have stayed in contact with them. Me and the owner are best friends and have been for a long, long time. So I do a lot of stuff for them. My original degree is in graphic design.
Okay.
So when I worked for them, I did a lot of the original catalogs and logos and things of that nature.
Yeah, you can tell with the CAV book that you have a background in graphic design because it's amazing to look at. Like, it's such nice laid out, and how everything looks in that book it's so much better than a lot of books I've looked through lately.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's my original cup of tea, and that's really when I left Reaper. Is you can only be one of the lost boys for so long until you get married and start having kids, and the corporate world calls for you. And I left Reaper and went to Tulsa to open up the art department for a big financial company up there that I worked for several years. And but like I said, I did a lot of things on the side still with Reaper. I traveled with them across the country to shows. We had actually started working on, while I was still there, we had started working on 2 games. Ed had originally released a set of rules. It was called Warlord. It was a little small orange and white colored book that they had used for a long time. And after we had put out the Dark Heaven line of figures, we looked at doing a more robust set of rules for it. So we had started on a new set of rules for that, and was also going to do a spaceship game of all things at the time. Ed was always big on spaceships. I was still doing Battletech. I was a big mech head. I'm really good friends with the owner of Rafa Miniatures, who they had the license to do the original Heavy Gear figures, the big tall, if you remember, the big 6 or 8 inch tall lead.
Yeah.
big things. So, so I had experience with doing that. So I was a big mech guy, and, I'd played in the back of my mind doing some things, at some point with mechs, but like I said, our focus was on the fantasy and a starship game. And then I left the company, before those had fully realized. And then, then we went ahead, they went ahead and released the Dark Heaven Apocalypse rules.
Oh, okay.
And, so I worked on that and did the original box design and stuff for that. And, I had actually brought in, at the time, Tim Collier, Izzy, that does a lot of art for them. So I'd worked with him to do a lot of the art development for the Dark Heaven game, before I left. And, about this time is when, Games Workshop released their, I can't remember the name of it, so I apologize. Their Dreadnought spaceship game, something.
Battlefield Gothic.
Yes, where you rolled the dice in the box top or something. I forget how that all worked. But anyway, so that kind of killed the, Starship, idea at the time, because they didn't want to put a set of Starship rules out against, Games Workshop, with their stuff.
Sure.
So that led into Ed decided to change the rules and do a mech game.
Okay.
So, and that became CAV, the original set of CAV rules. And we worked on that, and, I designed the CAV logo. I did most of the, corporation and faction logos, and then I did the layout on the original CAV 1 book, and did a lot of the art in it, and, a bunch of, background writing and some rules, that made it to that game. At that point I got too busy with real life and really couldn't do anything more with it. And, it got handed off to another gentleman that worked for the company for a while. And that's where CAV 2 came out as a second version. But it was not, well received.
Sure.
Because it was such a drastic change, from what everybody was used to from the first one. So,
was, CAV 1, that was hex based, correct?
It was not.
It was not.
We put rules in there, and actually at my request, when we were working on it, I used to do a line of terrain called Battlehex. And it was a hex-based terrain to use for Battletech games and stuff like that. So when we actually put out the first CAV 1, it has rules in there for normal measuring and hex rules.
Okay.
So, cause at the time, cause we were still, and it was, a good crossover with the Battletech guys so that they could still use what they had. to play without starting all over.
All right, so then CAV2 comes out. At what point does it become Talon Games then?
Well, CAV2, like I said, it was not, it didn't have nearly the response that they had hoped for. So they had stopped, going forward with any, development for the game at that point. It was such a departure from the original rule set. They really didn't want to try to flip everything back around, and the guy that had worked on it, left the company at that point. And, but miniatures, the sales on the figures were still good. There was a lot of figures that were out. They were close enough to Battletech, so you got a lot of crossover sales. So they were okay to keep with the figures, and go along with those. And, so that's pretty much where kind of CAV languished there for several years, from about probably 06 to 09 into 10. There was a side group that put out a couple of, licensed, PDFs, that, kind of more of a fan-based type project, but it was nothing that was officially sponsored by Reaper.
Okay.
About this time though, there was a major shift in the metal industry. Gold had got so expensive, at that point, $1,800 an ounce, that the guys that traded futures, it got to the point where it cost you so much money to make any money trading in gold. So they looked around for other metals that they could buy cheaper and drive the price up and be able to sell and make money. The beautiful capitalistic system that the United States has. Well, lo and behold, they discovered tin, which is a major metal that we use in the production of figures.
Yeah.
At the time, and I don't know that has changed, Indonesia is pretty much the sole provider of tin, in the world. And of course, tin is also used to make galvanized steel. So lo and behold, they managed to drive the price of tin up overnight about 8 or 9 times what it was. So, I don't remember the exact, what it was when it started and what it was when it ended, but it, had a major effect on the miniatures companies because we had switched to almost a predominantly all tin mix because of the lead scare. So, metal just went out the roof, for casting miniatures. So, CAV minis, being a little larger and blockier and solid, figures that we had been selling for $12 and $14, needed to start going for $25 or $30. That's not, a great price point for a game with no rule set and no support. Yeah. So the figures kind of languished there for a little bit. About this time, or right after this, of course, we started looking around for other alternatives, and that's kind of what grew into the original Bones figures. Okay. They had started doing plastic with some pre-painted figures and such like that, but that, like I said, it just kind of carried over into Bones. Right about that time, I had been working on a new rule set of mech rules that was called Rogue Legion. And I had already put out 20 figures that we had sold, and they were more of a kind of a generic line of mechs. But I was building the game rules around that, and one day I'm down in Dallas picking up figures and casting and everything, or Denton, where Reaper is at. And me and Ed are sitting around, and he said, I know you're working on these new set of rules, but we have CAV. We're really not going to do anything with it. I know that you worked on it and, was always interested in it and liked it. What do you want to do with it? So we worked out a deal. This was about 2010, for me to take over the CAV, IP and all the figures and related deals with that. They had just completed, the Bones 1 Kickstarter that had just exploded. So while they were getting figures together for that, we picked 8 models, or I picked 8 models out and sent those over to have, molds made of them. And if you ever, when you're getting around and you see people with white calves, those came out of the original 8 molds.
Yeah, I got a bunch of those.
Right. So that was more of a let's see if it works for the mechs. And I was impressed enough with what we got that we went ahead and developed a Kickstarter for CAV, the first one. And we did it at that time under the umbrella of Reaper Miniatures, but Talon Games, we were in charge of it and ran it and everything like that.
Okay.
And then have just kept going from there. So,
right. And was the CAV 2 Kickstarter, that was Talon Games still too?
That was completely, yes. We did that actually under our own name at that. So.
All right. Well, and then here we are now, right? Getting ready to come up on a CAV 3 Kickstarter?
CAV 3 Kickstarter, yeah. September 19th, 12 o'clock Central Time.
Central Time. And then, what can you tell us about what's coming in with the Kickstarter if you wanted to give a little promotion on it?
Well, obviously we're going to have more mechs. I mean, that's what we are. CAV is a combined arms game though. So, while CAVs are certainly the quarterback, of the prom king, infantry, aircraft, vehicles, they have just as important role in the game. So the Kickstarter, we're going to have more vehicles. We're going to have more aircraft. We're adding some terrain elements, that can be used for CAV, or other, 10 millimeter based games or different scales. A lot of it'll, when you get into that 18 to 15 millimeter range, a lot of that stuff kind of cross pollinates pretty easy with that.
Okay. Yeah.
And then of course, if anybody's seen the previews of the broadsword dropship.
Yes, that thing is so impressive. I
yeah.
can't wait.
excited for that thing.
Yes, that is going to be the cap piece for the Kickstarter. So we hope to get to that as a stretch goal. It is as big as it looks in the pictures. It's about 18 inches long, about 10 inches wide.
What's it made out of?
It will be PVC plastic.
Oh,
there may be some styrene elements in it as well. I don't know. We're still kind of working with the manufacturer as to how it's going to all come together. My hope is that maybe the side doors will actually open.
That'd be amazing.
So, yes. So it'll be, as we get there's a lot of, time going to be involved to tweak that up to get where we are. And before we want to jump that far into it, we want to make sure we're going to be building it. So.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm so excited for that, CAV 3. I missed the other two, and I definitely would have backed them knowing hindsight is 2020, but I would have loved to back those ones. So I can't wait for this one. We're going to get some more of some of the factions don't have as much of the CAVs as others, such as the Templars there, and the,
right. Yeah.
and the Principality.
We have really, this one is spun around the Templars and the Malvernans.
No.
So that's the two that we're going to be focusing on as far as, the CAVs and so forth. We're going to have aircraft from pretty much every faction in there because all the factions are a little aircraft, weak right now.
Yes.
If it blows up and we've got more than we know what to do with, we have some standby models I'd like to work in there too. Some of the Amethyl. We've got about a dozen models there, that need to be done. But we'll just kind of see how it flows. You're familiar with how a Kickstarter does. So
yeah, definitely.
The more it grows, the bigger it goes, the more stuff that we can keep throwing in there.
Now are you gonna, with infantry, are you guys gonna stick with the kind of just generic?
We are.
Cheat style and then.
Yeah, there's infantry is kind of tricky, and there's just trying to do faction based infantry at this scale. I think right now we've got different resources that we can work on rather than go back and do that.
Yeah, now, you could do a lot with paint anyways. Any changes you need.
In that sense, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Because you can always just add faction rules and then just keep generic stands.
Yeah. We are going to come back at some point. We've got light infantry, we've got powered infantry. We don't have the heavy infantry yet. So we'll be doing those. But so far we've kept the infantry in metal. So, they're small enough. And now that we've got plastic bases and stuff, the cost trade-off is not enough to really try to, put that in plastic, and something that's small in PVC doesn't necessarily transfer very well either.
Yeah, I'd love to see mounted infantry too. The idea of jet bikes or motorcycles or that kind of stuff in that scale would be very cool.
Right, and we've actually got some preliminary drawings of some of that with kind of anti-grav scooters and motorcycles and.
Oh, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff. Yeah, to fill it out, that'd be amazing. But like I say, focus on the CAVs. Once you fill up that, get all those out, then you can expand.
Yes, and I've always wanted to do either an alien version of or
horse-mounted
infantry, just for some backwards planet scenario or something. So,
so speaking of mounted infantry, when I was reading the rules, there was a note that was cut off in the book, and I was hoping maybe you can.
I do remember you saying that, and actually you would be the first one that's ever caught that, because that has not come up before.
Because it's a note, and it just really literally cuts off. I'm like, well, what can it not do?
That's what Pat's used to read and having to read books and see all the mistakes in them. So.
Well, it's our first one, and.
Oh yeah, not even a criticism. I just want to know what that says.
No,
once again, I've seen much worse with spelling mistakes and stuff in other books. This one so far is it's been perfect.
And if it's just one, and it's just the one out of the whole book, so which is.
Well, what's funny is, and I've laid out some books before, but this is the first one that I've done. Well, the second one I've done the preliminary. I actually did a game back in the early 2000s called Cry Havoc, HAVIC, which was a softback book rule set that I released with some 28 millimeter figures. But after you look at a set of when you've written on something for a year, for 2 years, it all makes sense to you in your head. and you look at something, and I think you fill in some blanks sometimes. And then when it actually comes out to print, you're like, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So where are we at? Where did you find that at?
Page 53.
Okay.
Under the mount and dismount action, right above the picture.
Okay.
Under motorized infantry, it says note. Infantry models with this type of transport are not required to use the mount and dismount action before conducting, and then it just ends.
I believe my understanding of that, and I'll have to go back and double check against my original deal, so I'm sorry for getting on the hot seat and not having the exact answer.
Oh, don't worry about it.
But I believe is they can, if they were riding that mount to a certain area on the board and then they wanted to dismount, like to go inside of a building or something like that, that they're not required to use the mount or dismount action, which would cost them an action point in order to change over to that mode.
So they can basically dismount for free.
Correct.
Okay. That makes sense, and also clarifies motorized infantry, because that's kind of their deal.
Right. Yeah. This is just a matter of jumping off, raising their leg, and they're not waiting for a door to open up or a ramp or something like that. So they're able to move from their mechanized transport to ground transport back and forth without paying for that action.
Oh, see, now I want more of those.
What I would imagine is probably that picture is probably on top of
on top of the text.
Yes, that would be my guess of where we screwed that up. So
in the future, are you planning to do more books? Because, like for scenarios or even an expansion kind of books?
We are.
Now, this is the only book, right? Is this the only book available?
This is the only book. We are trying to, I am not big on the, which is kind of funny because I've got a couple of ugly emails not too long ago about it, but I'm not the kind of guy, I don't want to try to push you 20 books. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't need to give you a book to have a rule of when your guy can go to the bathroom. So, and there's some games that are out there like that. No names mentioned, but we all know which ones.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and also I don't want to pump out. I know everybody, especially the Battletech crowd, likes the background, the nitty gritty and stuff like that. And we want to do some of that. But again, I don't want to be pushing books, just so that we have a book to sell you every month. That it's some kind of a cow that we can just keep milking, over and over and over and just say the same thing in a different way.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that the books that we're doing are unique and specific to what they're trying to do. We do want to push out more background information. The 2 books that we're working on right now is we are doing a new Journal of Recognition, which is a guide in the universe to find out all the nitty gritty information about the units, the models that your enemy are fielding. So it's kind of set up from a pilot's perspective on, what's the nuts and bolts of that guy and what makes him work. We had
for that one, Nerds is going to have pictures of all the different CAV, and then you can.
Yes, it'll be a full color.
That'd be crazy.
It'll be a hardback. Everything we do now is full color, hardbacks.
I guess speaking on that then with the CAV, as of right now, there are some data cards up on your Talon website,
yes.
But not all the CAV have a card. Is that with this book that we're just talking about? Would that kind of replace all that?
I'm in the here's how the color data cards came by is when we originally started out, let me back up a little bit to CAV 1. We did data cards for all the CAVs that we had at the time or were working on and put them in the back of the book. There's probably, 10 or 15 pages that were allocated for data cards in the original CAV 1.
Okay.
We released the book. 3 weeks after the book came out, we realized we had screwed up on a calculation, and every card in there is wrong.
No.
So I did not want to, when we did the new CAV book, I didn't want to have that same situation. Yeah. I didn't want to waste a bunch of pages on CAV files, and then lo and behold, we've made changes, which we have, and then invalidate all those cards and waste all those pages.
Anytime you have to FAQ anything, all of a sudden those cards become useless.
Right. So you've got a big chunk of the book that we could have used for something else. So I didn't want to do that. And in this day and time, 99% of the world has access to a computer, can print out a PDF and go to their library or whatever. So we put them all up online, for the original ones that we did and went from there. We had a program that did a little black and white card and everything. And we thought the world was round. I did some color cards, to use for demos. And, because one of the things that a lot of people had talked about was, they didn't want full pages of a record sheet. So we tried to keep them as small as we could so you could have, cause CAV's about a lot of models on the board. So, we didn't want you to have a stack of 20 pages worth of cards that you were trying to keep track of. But after we started doing the color cards, which were a little larger, about 4 to a page, a lot of people were like, hey, we think these are really cool. Can you do more of them? Well, we can, but we don't really have any way to do them quick. So I actually have to go in and hand lay out every card, hand type every stat out. Okay. So I've tried to work on them as I can and get that filled up. It's on my list to get further involved with that and get all the cards. And I'm really hoping by the end of the Kickstarter in October that I will have all the cards caught up for, everything that's currently available and that will be that's coming out in the new Kickstarter. So the color cards are on the way. But that's where that comes from.
Do you ever think of selling those as almost a card deck that you could put out?
Well, it's one of those things that I would like to. There are people that have asked for it, but I don't know if we're at the level to make it economical enough to do it, to not be not have to charge you $100 for a deck of cards.
Because as of right now, I think just the Force Manager is kind of where you can see all the mechs in one spot.
Yes. Yeah. Everything, the force manager, the construction program, everything is current in there. It's got stats for stuff that hasn't even been released. It's got stats for, there were models that were done, originally that really doesn't fit into the current structure that we're trying to do or that we're doing redesigns, but people still have them in metal and like to use them. So there's actually cards in there. So if you want to use them, they're still available in there. So yes, the drawback though is it is a PC only program.
I was just going to ask, any chance that might show up in a Mac OS form, usable form, I guess?
Nobody uses Macs. Come on.
I have
a PC. I'm quite happy with it.
I'm a cross-platformer, so while I don't hate the Mac, my laptop is a Mac. So when I'm not at home, I can't use the Force Manager.
Right. That'll be if somebody volunteers and wants to do that, we will do what we have to do to share source files with them to build.
All right. You heard that, guys. Anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you got some kind of programming skills.
Or an Android version would be nice too, actually.
Well, and I don't want to jump the gun on a fellow. I've got a guy that is building a web-based.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, web-based would solve all problems.
That solves everything, yeah.
And I would say he's about 2/3 done. So okay. I'm hoping that will be coming along pretty quick. I've seen a couple of versions of it so far, and it's pretty impressive what he's got.
Okay,
nice.
So more power to you, web-based guy. So one other question I have too is with rules here, John. Now, so just recently I played a couple games with a good friend of mine here in town, and we were just kind of learning nuances, and we had a great time, let me just say, and we enjoyed the game immensely.
Good.
We were using the cheat sheets, and then we had come across, and for the life of me, I can't find it now. The cheat sheet was different than the rule in the book, and so I guess for clarification's sakes, which should take over as far as correct book or cheat sheet?
The cheat sheet is correct because the cheat sheet is based off the latest version of errata.
All right, so anything in the cheat sheet should overrule what's in the book.
Yes, if you got the latest version of the cheat sheet, then that should be based off the version that's on the website right now is based off the errata, and that would be the correct one to use.
Okay, perfect.
Nice.
So next time we play, we'll just use the cheat sheets, and whatever is on the cheat sheet will go. But the cheat sheet is spectacular, especially with all the special abilities. There's sometimes the special abilities can get a little daunting when you're first learning how to play, and the cheat sheet that helps out a lot with that.
It does, and that's a good aspect that we just added to the Force Manager as well. If you print your army list out, it will actually print out a sheet.
Nice.
Yeah, I trust me, I made sure that printed every time we played.
Yes, it just has the essays that you're going to need. So,
yeah.
So that helps a lot, and it is because CAV has kind of an almost of a deck building kind of element to it.
Yes,
because you're trying to find the right models to support each other, and that's one of the things that I really like about CAV is, as opposed to some other games that I played out there, is if in some games, a light mech and an assault mech, if they both have a medium laser, they're really the same thing, just one has more armor. So, as opposed to in CAV, the little guys have their role, the big guys have their role, the fire support guys have their role. So there's things that they are better at and worse at. So, the trick is to build those to support one another. And, that's the biggest thing that I see with players when they're switching over from Battletech, and trying out CAV as they try to play CAV as they would play Battletech.
Yeah, I fell victim to that in our first game.
That is a kiss of death. Yeah, the minute you run that little light recon out in the middle of the board and he's the only guy to be shot at, it doesn't work.
And that was, let me just say that when we played, my friend John was also he's a big Battletech fan too, and we both kind of fell into that trap. But luckily enough, we were doing it at the same, so we were kind of on even footing. But the thing he loved the most is that the light mechs that he had were actually somewhat useful. He said, he goes, this is actually a key mech I can't just send it out there as fodder or, for you to just take pot shots at. This thing actually is with its recon and its ECM and all that stuff, it's kind of important. Like, so I can't just let it, I can't let it sit out there and just take shots.
Right. His job is not to run out there and just try to shoot somebody in the back.
No. Unless he's your last mech. That's the one of the things that we really enjoyed about CAV was the fact that there is a part and a place for every one of those. So when you're building your strike, what do we call them? Strike force? Squad. Or your squad.
Force group.
Force group. When you're building your force group, you have to put a lot of thought into the synergy that goes with each one of those mechs.
Yes.
So that was thoroughly enjoyable.
And you'll see and there's actually reasons that, that you'll see a lot more repeat. That's the reason, we're not going to have 1,000 different models down the road. Lots of times your squads will have 2 or 3 of the same, models. We'll probably do down the road, we'll do some more variants. That way you can keep using the same model. And luckily with the plastic, if you really want to be that, accurate, it's not bad to have to cut arms or change things out on everything. That's one of the things that, I get people back when we did metal calves, we sold weapon packs. So we could change arms out and do things like that. But the weapon packs sold for $8, $10, $12 a pack. Well, in plastic, because of the way that they're cast, all the figure comes in one piece. So we don't overcast arms or, for every miniature, there's legs, body, 2 arms. Okay. So if I take arms away from something, then I've got 2 extra parts.
Extra bodies. Yeah.
So we can't really do weapon packs like that we used to do. But like I tried to explain to him, I said, instead of, we're talking $4 and $5 plastic figures now. So rather than go out and pay the $10 or $12 that you were paying
buy an extra figure,
buy the figure, cut the arms off, and have the extra pieces to do.
Yeah, and I will say, being in plastic helps out a lot because I picked up the CAV 1 Kickstarter off of eBay.
Yes.
And then one of the mechs in the packs came with 2 right arms.
Yes.
So what I did to fix the problem is I just cut the gun. Because the shoulder part was bi-directional, and I just flipped the gun around, and I had a left arm, and it looks fine. You couldn't tell. As a matter of fact, I think I've forgotten which mech it is now, and I can't tell the difference.
Well, and that's unfortunately that's a drawback from the doing them the way that we do them, and the plastic and the quantity. Between Kickstarter 1 and Kickstarter 2, we shipped out almost 350,000 models.
Wow.
So, when you're doing those kind of numbers, we do have that happen.
Oh yeah, no. Again, like I said, not a criticism.
Anybody that has that, please contact us. You can get our address off the website, and we will fix that.
Yeah. Or you can just, since it's plastic, it's easy enough to fix yourself.
Or if you just want to make your own variant or do some, I've seen a couple of people even to the point of, changing out legs and stuff like that. Most of the models tend to be more symmetrical, so it's not as hard to do that sometimes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's part of the hobby. So that's the thing I like. So.
And that's another thing about CAV is that, you can make your own mechs too. Like you have all the rules built in to create your own versions of these things too. So that's very interesting.
There is a construction system as well. If you want to do that or if you want to modify, it's a pretty simple, the way that it's set up. But we have, point wise, we have just played the living hell out of it and it's held up pretty good. So, you're always going to run into some weird, situations, especially if you're playing against somebody with a lot of figures. There's a certain quality to quantity. So if there's 3 of you and 50 of them, it's any points based system can't take into account just the mass of dice rolls that somebody's going to get for that many figures. So, but and that's one of the things you do need to watch out with infantry. Infantry is cheap or can't be cheap. So you obviously you want to have those in the game when you're needed. But if you've got somebody that's decided to buy 300 squads worth of infantry to take on gas, just go ahead and tell him that you got better things to do with the rest of your days.
It's always about your opponent. You don't want to play the kind of people that would make that kind of list.
Yes. No, yeah. Okay, are we still moving infantry? It's been 2 hours. Come on, guys.
So I have actually one other question, and this is just for myself. On ECM and active phase array, John?
Yes.
The third option, it says can fire one or more anti-radiation guided missiles.
Yes.
Where is the stat for the anti-radiation guided missiles?
Well, it's actually in the back in upgrades, because you have to buy the missile. It's as an alternate ammo.
Oh, okay. So if you have an ECM, you still have to buy the guided missile?
Right. Well, no, you have normal guided missiles, but you can upgrade and also be equipped with harm missiles, which is just a variant of the guided missile. And we did make some tweaks to that. That's in the latest errata. So basically, if you have normally you would have to spend an action to target lock, fire a guided missile. Harm missiles give you a free target lock.
Okay.
So it saves you an action point if somebody's got active ECM or active phase array out there, you can also choose to fire your guided missiles at them with an automatic target lock.
Okay, that's good. All right.
I did see those harm missiles, and it never clicked in. That's what harm means.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Anti-radiation missiles. Sometimes I get caught in the weeds. I'm a military guy, so I like that.
That adds flavor for sure.
Yeah. So sometimes I have to be careful. That was the first version of the game that we put out for people to play. They were down on all the abbreviations. Why do you have well, it makes perfect sense to me, but I'm sorry, you guys are not used to it. So I had to kind of come back and simplify our naming system for some of our weapon systems.
Yeah, but it adds flavor too, because these are militaries fighting each other. So you get into once you get into it, you understand it, and that's all that matters.
Well, I love that space opera, that hard sci-fi. I was Space Above and Beyond, Robotech, Space 1999, those type of.
Yeah, it shows in the fluff.
Yeah, I'm not big on the whole crazy fantasy sci-fi kind of systems. So I'm a Star Wars guy, not a Star Trek guy. So
yeah. But I do like the races and everything in this. That adds a lot of a flavor too, because it's not just factions. You also have different species. And that's really interesting to me also.
And that's the hardest part about a sci-fi game. When I can understand why a lot of games stay away from alien races, because to be alien, you sometimes have to come up with stuff that is so out of the box that us as humans, we just can't wrap our heads around. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a trade-off with the game. Is obviously we have alien races, but when you see the way that their units are named and their structures, and we've tried to throw some alien terminology and stuff in there, but they still have a lot of human nomenclature to them. And
they do remind me of the Star Trek kind of aliens. They're still aliens, but they're humanoid aliens with. You can understand them at least and get into their character. It's not so out of the reach that you don't understand where they're coming from or what they're doing.
Right. Yeah. Because if you go back and use again a Star Trek as example, everybody remembers the Klingons and the Vulcans and the Romulans, but the guys that were the little aliens in the wall or whatever that called us bags of mostly water. Nobody goes out and wants to play those guys.
Exactly.
Let me see. I want to be the amoebas. Let me go for it.
Yeah, I want to be the rock guy.
Yeah. So our philosophy behind that is the rule book and the way we present everything is being presented to you through human terminology, so that everybody can wrap their head around it. So yeah, it's a trade-off. I'd love to be more alienish, but I have found that when you get too far out of the box, people are like, that just is too weird for me.
Yeah. And especially with the mech game, it's about the mechs. It's not about the races. That just adds that little extra flavor.
Right.
All right. So, John, we're getting close to the end here. So why don't we, let's find out, where can people find you in the future as far as shows are concerned?
Well, we just got done, with the scheduling for this year. I don't know that we're going to do any more this year. We're building that schedule, at shows next year. I know that my plan is I want to hit a lot more of the smaller regional shows than the big shows that we did this year, because, at the big shows, there's just so much out there anymore. You just get lost in the minutia of it all. We had, a big booth presence and games and stuff like that, but the way that the big shows look at things now and stuff like that has really changed in the last 10 years. And I don't know that we'll probably do as many of it, next year, and do more of the, smaller things. Cause we did, this year, we did Adepticon, and then we came back up there the next month and did Little Wars. And, Adepticon, I think 5,000-6,000 people. Little Wars was probably 800 people like that. And we just blew the doors off of what we did at Adepticon as far as sales and players and excitement and people that was involved. And we've seen that. We just came from doing ReaperCon. Overall, in terms of sales and people, that actually ended up being the biggest show we did all year. So, we're really going to try to do a lot more of the smaller regional shows.
So then we probably won't see you at Adepticon next year then?
Good chance at this point, maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you'll do Little Wars again though, at least, right?
Yes. Yeah. I definitely am going to be at Little Wars. Right. So Adepticon is we're kind of at the 50-50 mark right now. The main problem we have with Adepticon is the vendor room is great. Getting events in, is very, very hard. They are
Pat knows all about that.
yeah, they are very, very focused on 2 or 3 games right now. And if you're not doing those 2 or 3 games, they really don't seem to have much time for you.
Yeah.
So, which is no big on them. I'm not trying to cause any political fallout screaming how horrible he thinks Adepticon is. Oh. I understand their philosophy and where they're coming from, and you got to do what you got to do, but it's not working for companies my size.
Yeah.
Or even even Mantic has issues with that too, and they're quite a bit larger.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I think especially Adepticon is turning back to what it used to be instead of being all inclusive, and that's disappointing. But I guess it's this natural way of things.
Yes. Well, it's cyclic. It'll come back.
Yeah, exactly.
That was my prediction. As I said, you can jump in bed with those 2 or 3 companies and it's all fine and dandy till they don't need you anymore. And then you're back looking at us trying to save your show. And you're like, let me remember how you did us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So then, if someone was looking to see if you're going to be in an area near them, where would be the best place to go look for that?
I am in the process. I'm going to put together a convention page, location page, up on the website at talon-games.com.
On the Facebook page at all?
On the Facebook, we'll have stuff up there as we get closer to it. You can also get to our webpage through cavhq.com. That will take you directly to our website as well. We're planning on, we've got a lot of stores too have asked us to come in.
Nice. That's
great.
Really good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're in the process of putting together a demo and a league play system, that we want to start introducing those at stores. So that's,
now that you've said league play, it just dawned on me, like, in the future, do you think you'll put together a campaign system so people can play in a campaign where they...
We are. We kind of got off target with the books a little earlier, but besides the Journal of Recognition, we are also working on a campaign book.
Nice.
Oh, that's the second book.
Yes.
Yeah, we never got back to it.
Yeah. Full circle. Here we are.
All right, so that's good to know because campaign play is huge for me.
Yes. We want to flesh out how the upgrade system works. Right now, it's kind of a generic, just kind of throw everything in the pot. We want to expand on the faction doctrines. We want to give you some more options and things like that you can use, specific, maybe some options even for mercenaries and security forces and pirates, things that they can, take advantage of, to use. So that's a big element that we want to put in the game. So that's that book. And then, we also are going to be doing a Flashpoint series, which are really where we're going to introduce a lot of the background, scenarios and everything like that. And those will just be free PDFs that you'll be able to download.
Oh, real nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on talongames.com for locations, upcoming shows that, they will be at, so you can
and make sure you get the hyphen in there. It's talon-games.com. If you go to Talon Games, it goes off into back in the day, there was a company out in California that was doing, land games, and they got the original, Talon Games domain, and it's something land game, whatever.
Yeah, computer stuff.
And then they let it expire, and a overseas company has got a hold of it and wants a lot of money to get it. And so we are talon-games.com.
And then you have a redirect from cavhq.com.
Cavhq.com will get you to the same spot as well.
Either one of those two. So check that out. Upcoming September 19th, upcoming Kickstarter. Check it out. Kickstarter.com. You're going to get some new mechs, some tanks, some infantry. You said flyers too, right, John?
There is. There's going to be a whole section of aircraft in this one as well, more so than what we've done in the past.
So if you're looking to flesh out your forces here, because I'm looking forward to getting some more aircraft for my rack. Is it rack? Is that how you guys pronounce that?
It's actually rock.
Rock. All right.
Rock. Yes.
And did you have something you were going to say, Rob?
Oh, I was going to say it's CAV Strike Operations HQ on Facebook, and then there's also a support group that both those places get lots of great people showing off their mechs and a lot of cool paint jobs.
Other than our Facebook page there, which is the CAV CAVSOHQ on Facebook, the rest of that's all fan based, and I've seen several new pages pop up here in the last couple of weeks even.
Nice.
And we just continue to grow every week. So I know, we're picking up new players, and I believe me, people, I'm listening to your emails. I know sometimes it's hard to find, somebody that's in your area at this time to maybe play with, if you're not already part of a group or whatever, but, please contact us. I'll do whatever I can to help you with that and kind of give you some ideas with promotion and I've been in that same boat before, so I know what it takes to build up a new game, and we'll certainly help you with that.
Yeah, it's an issue with any game, trying to get people to play it. Like you say, there's certain games everyone plays, well, most people play, and then to get any kind of new game in, it takes a little bit of work, but it's usually worth it because all these other games are so much better than the ones.
Well, and that's always net games are a niche of a niche.
Yeah, that's right.
So that makes it even harder. But it seems like we have a very good, dedicated, once they play, and start playing, they seem to stay with it. I think a lot more so than I see with some of the, game of the week players. So.
Yeah. So on your website, are you going to be continuing the rule booklet with an included faction?
I'm sorry, do you want now?
On your website, when you buy the rule booklet, you get to choose a faction, and you'll continue that, because if you're looking to start the game and you have just one other guy, that's a good way to get into the game with your friend, because you're going to get 4 models to start to play, and you're going to get the rule booklet, and at $40, that's in my book a steal.
Oh, it's ridiculous, yeah.
All the squads are about $22 worth of figures. They're in the game what we call a special squad. So each squad has 2 attack, 1 fire support, and 1 recon model.
Oh, nice.
They all point out at about 2,500 points. So they're all equal forces to fight. And that's one of the things a lot of shows when we're there, I always, if there's 2 of you, one of you buy the book, one of you get their free squad, and the other one spend $20 and buy another squad. And you're ready to play against each other right away, because they're point wise, operation wise, they're all equal.
Yeah, and then once you play, 9 times out of 10, whoever you're playing with, if he's a friend of yours, will probably go, okay, let's get into this then. And then you just go from there.
And worst case, if you really want to play and he's on the ropes, throw the game. Let him win.
Yeah, exactly. Let his mechs just run right over you.
Yes, just, what have I done wrong here?
So, okay, John. So one last thing, since this is Mobile Armor Radio, and you are tried and true Battletech from the beginning, you said.
Yes.
Where do you sit on clans, pro or against?
Oh, I promised I wouldn't talk politics or religion. I am a 30-25 fourth success war guy.
Yes.
That's
I feel like they jumped the shark a little bit too quick. I think that there was a lot of things that we could have done and instead and played. And I think that in the rush to put going back to the book of the month kind of experience, I think that they were too focused on putting books out. It's hard to be a miniature company when you don't produce miniatures.
Yeah.
And so that's what their forte is books. And I think that it lost something, and then where it just kind of compounded upon that. So
I agree. So we're all in the same camp as far as that's concerned. So.
Yeah, like I said, I kind of 50-50 on the clans. I think that I think it in the earlier when it very first started. I mean, like I said, I think we got it too soon, but I could see where they were coming from and could make it work. But I think from that point, after 30-55, I think it, got way too squirrely for me.
That's exactly how I feel. So.
That's a Kansas, Oklahoma term, Texas. It's a little squirrely.
All right. Well, John, thank you for coming on.
Well, I appreciate you guys having.
We really appreciate it, and we'd love to have you on. If you got something coming up down the pipeline, feel free to reach out to us.
We'll definitely talk about the Kickstarter once it comes on. Maybe we'll have you back on to talk about that.
I was going to say we're going to be running for 31 days, so if another show comes up and you guys want me after we got some stuff out to show on the Kickstarter, I'd love to come on and talk about a little more of that and try to beat that last penny out of every backer. So.
Sure. So September 19th, Kickstarter starts, talon-games.com.
Yes, sir.
CAV, it's awesome. Check it out. Hear it out. Check out the Facebook pages. If you are just getting into it, get your models up there, man. I would love to personally see you post what your models are looking like. Half the fun of this hobby and this type of gaming is looking at your models and seeing what people are doing. So, at least for me. Yeah. I love seeing other people's stuff.
That's half the hobby is the getting ready, the building the stuff. I love building terrain. So, we will always be looking at doing new terrain elements and stuff like that. But, that fellowship of building that stuff and playing the games with your friends and showing off the paint jobs and the stuff like that. That's what we do the hobby for. And, we want to try to keep passing that on to new players.
Yeah, and
awesome.
The CAV community has been very welcoming and friendly. There's other Facebook pages of other games I go to, and there's times where they just are not welcoming at all. But so far, everybody in CAV on all the pages has been so nice and so supportive. And anytime anybody has a question, they'll answer it as best they can, or they'll point you to the right spot. It's a really nice community, and I hope it stays that way. And CAV fans are the most vocal. We do all different games, but the CAV ones, those guys, they're always demanding more CAV content.
So that's great. So, all right, John, again, thank you very much. Everything you do is great. I love the game. Looking to add more models now. Next time I have some free time to play. My friend already bought a huge lot off eBay. He got the rulebook from you guys. He's read through it. We're ready playing a day to get together and play again. So, I'm excited.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Make sure you download the errata. We have changed a few things. So.
Yes, I do. I have that. I have a special folder with all my.
Most of it's FAQ, just better explanations, but there has been 2 or 3 nodal rule changes from the original book. But yes, make sure that you've got that. And like I said, I appreciate you guys having me on and everything that you've done, and I'll certainly do whatever I can to support you guys.
No worries. We appreciate that very much. So, all right, Talon-games.com, September 19th Kickstarter. Check it out. And we'll see you guys at the beginning of the month again with episode 4. This will be 3.5, correct?
Yep.
3.5, and we should have this out before the 19th, yes?
Oh, yeah. This will be out quick. It's easy to edit. Right. No, there was no swearing. There was no... We're all good.
All right, so again...
Thanks a lot, guys. And
thank you, John.
I appreciate everybody out there that plays CAV. I appreciate the support.
All righty.
Awesome.
This has been Mobile Armor Radio. Join our Facebook group by searching for Mobile Armor Radio. Find us on Twitter @MArmorRadio. Find us on iTunes and visit our website, mobilearmorradio.podbean.com. Join us on the first of every month for more Mecha discussion.